picture this. You are standing in an exam courtroom, and you just lost an entire grade boundary. Why? Because you gave a perfectly accurate textbook definition that scored absolutely 0 marks. Your evidence was technically correct, but your defense completely collapsed. Well, by the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly how to structure your 0478 computer science answers to guarantee top marks and step right around this exact trap. So let's dive right into it. Thousands of Cambridge IGCSE computer science students make this really painful mistake every single year. You open the paper, you see a question about HTML, and you immediately write down HTML is a markup language for websites. You're feeling pretty confident. But then results day arrives and you see a big fat 0. Why? Because memorizing a vocabulary list without actually understanding the practical context the examiner is testing is a massive trap. The topic of HTML basics absolutely cannot be learned as an isolated definition. It needs a real reason to exist. What's really fascinating in here is why ordinary rote revision just completely fails under pressure. You see a term you panic a little bit because of the clock, and you just start writing down random floating facts instead of answering the specific demand of the question. In the communication and internet chapters, these concepts are tightly linked together. If you don't understand the boundaries, like the difference between memory and storage or a protocol versus a service, you'll recognize a familiar word and end up answering a totally different question from the one that was actually set. Okay, so how do we fix this collapsing defense? We need what I call the 3-layer framework. The ideal way to walk through literally any 0478 topic is by moving through 3 specific layers. Step 1 is starting with a super simple, everyday understanding. Step 2 is layering on the technical, correct subject vocabulary. But step 3? That is where the magic happens. That 3rd layer is incredibly crucial. Look, students often think they know a topic inside out, right up until they try to express it in this 3rd layer. This is where you take that technical idea and you shape it into a logical sequence that actually survives time pressure and scores points. It's kind of like the difference between knowing what a hammer is and knowing how to build a whole house with it while someone holds a stopwatch to your face. And this perfectly illustrates the trap we're talking about, the massive difference between description and explanation. Description is safe, but it's shallow. It just tells the examiner what the process or method is. But explanation, that is where the heavy marks are awarded in your 0478 paper. Explanation tells the examiner how it works and exactly why it matters. Examiners expect both. If you only describe, you're throwing away marks. But if you just jump into explaining without clearly naming the concept first, your response is going to sound totally confused. In just a moment, I'm going to reveal the exact 4-question examiner checklist that will completely change how you answer these questions. But first, you literally can't use that clue without the framework that makes it obvious. Because without the right foundation, even the best examiner clues won't save your grade. Let's map out exactly how to build your defense. This is your disciplined, step-by-step path for reasoning through any HTML or web structure question. First, you have to identify what the question actually demands. Next, classify the correct concept. Third, explain the sequence step by step. And seriously, don't jump forwards and backwards here. Explain the mechanism first and then the consequence. And critically, step 4, connect it back to the context and check if you need to provide an advantage, a comparison, or a design choice. This structure produces a crystal clear answer, instead of just throwing facts at the page and hoping something sticks. Which brings us to a really harsh reality. Generic responses rarely gain full marks. Think about it. If your exam question is set in a school management system, or an industrial system, or a retail website, your HTML reasoning must stay completely inside that specific environment. If you leave your ideas floating in abstraction, your evidence gets thrown right out of court. Real-world transfer matters because it converts your memory into actual scorable usefulness. Okay, time for our cross-examination challenge. I want you to consider an escalated Cambridge-style scenario. A school is building a new secure portal. Explain how HTML's structure and presentation layers are used here. Just think for a second about how a panicked student sweating under the clock might answer this. They'd probably fixate on a keyword and completely ignore the deeper process the examiner actually wants to see. I want you to pause the explainer right now. Seriously, pause it. Look closely at that prompt. Spot the potential error a generic student would make and predict what the top band correction should be. What are they going to get wrong, and how would you fix it? All right, let's look at the verdict. As the examiner, I can tell you that generic answer is vague and missing critical steps. Saying HTML uses tags to make the school page look good just states an advantage with absolutely no reason, and it confuses similar terms. The top band correction, however, orders the steps logically. It cleanly separates structure, meaning the semantics and layout via HTML, from presentation, which is the styling via CSS. And look at how it grounds the technical mechanism perfectly in the school context by mentioning maintaining uniform branding across the school portal. That right there? That is a top-band, full-mark answer. Okay, here is that promised examiner clue. Before you submit your final answer, run your reasoning through this 4-question practical self-check to ensure your evidence is totally bulletproof. 1. What is it? 2. How does it work? 3. Where is it used? And 4. Why is it better or worse than an alternative in that specific situation? If you can't answer those 4 prompts in your head, your evidence is weak, and I promise you, the examiner is not going to show mercy. Creating error-aware notes like this, where you contrast memorized facts with reality, is a real game changer. It's way more useful than just writing down correct facts. Why? Because surface features constantly distract you from the deeper mechanism being assessed. You might fixate on a device name or a familiar symbol and completely ignore the actual process. You need to know what the common mistakes are, like vague wording or missing steps, so you can actively step around them when you're sitting in the exam hall. So, the final verdict on your HTML exam strategy is this: reasoning beats memorization every single time. You have to repeatedly connect the topic to familiar technology. Think about how these patterns appear in your phone, or automated systems, or banking apps. When you can explain a concept accurately in your own words, without relying on some memorized textbook phrase, you remember not just the label, but the actual reason the concept exists in the first place. So we have completely solved the reasoning case for HTML basics. You've got the framework down. But leaving now means you're going to walk right into a massive trap when the paper suddenly flips and asks you to evaluate data handling alternatives. The exam doesn't just test one skill in isolation, it links them together. Think about it. If your foundational HTML logic collapses under pressure, there is no way your data handling will survive the real world. To master that exact follow-up skill and secure those top-tier boundaries, click the next explainer on screen right now and subscribe to our YouTube channel Ace the Exams at acexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. Keep reasoning, and I'll see you in the next one.